Today on the Playbook podcast, President Erdoğan of Turkey is in town and we're going to be talking peace in the Middle East. We've got the latest fallout from the shooting at a Texas ICE facility yesterday. And Donald Trump pursuing lawfare. Who could believe it? Hello, I'm Jack Blanchard.
And I'm Dasha Burns. It is Thursday, September 25th.
And this is the Playbook podcast. Great to have you back on, Dasha. How are you doing?
Hey, Jack. Good morning. I've been running around various conferences this week between UNGA and some cool stuff going on in Virginia. Just yesterday, I moderated some panels at the Miller Center on the presidency, talking all about presidential power, which, of course, is incredibly relevant to many of the things we'll talk about today.
Excellent. Let's talk about presidential power today then, shall we? We've got two presidents in the White House today. President Erdoğan in Turkey is going to be arriving at the Oval Office shortly, and we'll have that classic scene that we now all know where the two of them sit there with a few select members of the press and answer questions. We know they're going to talk about trade and they're going to talk about some military fighter jet deal, which is all fine and important news, but a much bigger thing is happening right now. Donald Trump is making another big push for peace in the Middle East. And Erdoğan, of course, as president of Turkey, is an absolutely key player in anything that happens in the Middle East. Big, powerful country and a NATO ally as well. Erdoğan was in the room on Tuesday when Donald Trump sat down with, I think, 8 leaders of Arab or Muslim majority nations at UNGA in New York to talk through a new peace plan that he and his envoy, Steve Witkoff, have been working on. And this feels like it's starting to become a bit more of a tangible thing now. They unveiled a 21-point plan for peace in Gaza, as in what it would look like after the fighting stops. And it basically received
a rare moment where they have revealed some details that have been really lacking in any peace plans that have been put out.
Tell me about it. I mean, we remember Trump standing up and talking about Riviera in Gaza, and he had this sort of big vision of Trump Tower blocks.
I was there for that pretty stunning press conference.
Jaw-dropping press conference. And I don't think there was a single person in the room, except maybe Donald Trump, who believed a word of it was going to happen.
Well, and there was nothing on paper aside from his speech. Like that's the thing about Trump policies. Sometimes they just, sort of are off the cuff, and then they're made here. There has been pen put to paper with real stakeholders at the table.
Exactly. And this looks like a much more serious strategy to me. A combination of scoopy reporting from Politico and also from our friends at Axios yesterday has sort of revealed the basic points of the plan. And of course, hostages would have to be released and a ceasefire would have to be agreed. But it would basically involve both Israel and Hamas essentially getting out of Gaza and a new regime running it, with Arab and Muslim countries providing funding, security support, and so on. Crucially, Donald Trump said he gave assurances that Israel will not annex the West Bank as part of that. And the bigger point, and I think what we'll probably hear today from Erdoğan as well, is that the nations all around in the region basically seem to be giving their thumbs up to this plan. And that feels like they see this clearly as a serious proposal and they're prepared to buy into it, at least from the reaction we're getting in New York. That feels like a big step forward to me, Dasha. An even bigger moment will come on Monday when Netanyahu himself is coming back to the White House and they've got to try and sell him on the idea. How do you think that relationship is working between the president and Netanyahu now?
Well, everything you're talking about, Jack, is really, really significant. There's a ton of movement, which is surprising and also important. Surprising given the timing of just how recently Israel bombed Qatar in a move that really shocked the White House. They did not give a green light. They weren't given a heads up. Everything about how that played out was really bad for the relationship between Israel and the United States, Israel and the Qataris, and even the Qataris in the United States, even though that relationship is pretty strong, but it frayed the hopefulness at a critical moment. It seems like what has happened here is that the president has really use that frustration that he's feeling with Netanyahu to go to the other players at the table here and say, okay, Bibi's not listening. He's not getting it done. Let's bring the other stakeholders on board and get this figured out, and then drag him along. Now, whether he's going to be able to do that or not, I think is a big question mark. But the Qataris in particular are really, really important here. I think we're seeing right now Israel kind of isolated and pressured by not just the United States, but all of their surrounding neighbors in the region.
The other thing he's going to get asked about when he does his press conference or sort of semi press conference with Erdogan today, of course, is political violence again. Awful to say that this conversation is already
Yeah.
resurfaced. Only a couple of weeks after the killing of Charlie Kirk, we saw this shooting at this ICE facility in Texas yesterday. And all immediately, Dasha, just the speed that this becomes a bitter political argument when something like this happens. Like when we're still trying to figure out what happened, already people are politicizing this. Um, Kash Patel, the head of the FBI, released a picture of bullet casings that were found close to the incident. With one of them said "anti-ICE" had been written on it, which obviously and understandably has been taken up by conservatives to show, they say once again, we are seeing sort of leftist violence, and we've heard that from members of the regime, and of course from political commentators as well. If this is what it appears to be, then this is only going to fuel the desire in the White House for some significant policy response to this spate of violence, right? And so far, it's been, as I said, 2 weeks since Charlie Kirk was killed. We haven't actually seen a lot of like actual action yet.
Not yet, but that's because they're still actively working on it. I mean, everything I'm hearing behind the scenes is that the White House is looking at the law and looking at what the options are for how they might be able to go after what they believe are left wing groups that are the source, whether it's via funding or other kinds of support for this kind of violence. We haven't seen the details or any evidence between links that the White House is talking about just yet. It's all still been very vague, but it isn't in the works, and I believe my sources on that, given the people that are in this White House and just how enraged they are by the killing of Charlie Kirk, and now this is another example that they can add to their arsenal, and I think we can expect that that is absolutely going to push the boundary of how the White House has responded in the past. I think we're going to see a new and boundary pushing effort from this administration, whether we're talking about the First Amendment, whether we're talking about clamping down and restricting the activities of nonprofits, advocacy groups, um, what have you.
Yeah, that makes sense. We saw one executive order, didn't we, from Trump, outlaw or declaring that Antifa is a domestic terrorist organization. The problem with that, as has been widely reported, is that Antifa isn't really an
Right.
actual thing, and also neither is designating a domestic terror. Like neither of those things are actual things. So although Trump can say it, like in terms of actual response, it feels a bit
Yeah, I
thin.
think that falls into the category of symbolic executive orders
Yes,
rather than ones
exactly.
with teeth. But I don't think that is the end. I think that's only the beginning.
The other thing we need to talk about today is what is broadly being described as lawfare. And I think in this case, it's pretty hard to get away from the fact that that is what it is. Reported by multiple outlets last night that Donald Trump's new handpicked US attorney in Virginia is planning to ask a grand jury to indict the former FBI director, James Comey. Um, Now, Trump has been demanding this for years. We know James Comey is one of the people he blames for what happened to him in his first term over the Russia investigation. Um, and it came to a point last week where we saw this really weird message that Trump put on Truth Social, Dasha. It read like it was meant to be a private message to Pam Bondi, but it was essentially telling the head of the DOJ to go after these people and get them prosecuted come hell or high water. And here we are a few days later learning that is what is going to happen to James Comey, regardless of the evidence that the DOJ may or may not have against him.
Yeah, and it's funny that I was at this conference on presidential power where we had people who have served in government and experts on government from both sides of the aisle. One of the big topics of conversation here has been the independence of these agencies, particularly the DOJ, and just how much this administration is completely breaking norms to the point where it's transforming transformed the relationship between the White House and these agencies that have typically functioned outside of direct presidential power. And yeah, I think the DOJ is the most stark example where he is directing his attorney general to go after his enemies, and she is uh, saying yes, sir, and just doing that. That's not how this relationship has functioned in the past.
Yeah, well, in the past, when anything even vaguely like this has been discovered to have happened, people have had to resign. It's been a big scandal. In this occasion, the president has just put it on social media and said this is what he wants to happen, right? And when his previous attorney said, "I don't think there's a case here. I'm not going to pursue it," that attorney was fired, and he's drafted in one of his White House aides to be the new acting attorney. She's an insurance lawyer. She's not even a prosecutor, but apparently she's going to do the thing, almost regardless of whether or not there's a case there.
Yeah, there's no hiding the ball here anymore. It's not trying
Yeah.
to do it, behind closed doors. It is happening out in the open very flagrantly.
And there's something of a deadline because James Comey's alleged offence that they're trying to get him on, which was some testimony he gave to Congress back in 2020. The statute of limitations on that expires next week, and so the expectation is that we could see movement on that in the next few days. Just while we're talking about legal stuff, Dasha, just one other thing to flag for people to watch out for today is Trump's attempt to fire Lisa Cook from the Federal Reserve Board. That case is now at the Supreme Court. We are going to hear her legal submission is due into the Supreme Court today, setting out her case, and we should get that this afternoon. Then things might start to move quite quickly. In that case, we may hear the Trump administration's response maybe tonight, if not tomorrow morning. And then the Trump administration want to rule in quickly because they want her out before the next Fed meeting in October. So we may see that story moving quite quickly. And of
And
course,
that could once again set a precedent that changes how things work for years to come.
exactly. It's a massive one. If he wins that case, then lots of people in the financial world believe that essentially to be the end of the beginning of the end of true Fed independence. And there could be big economic repercussions from that if the markets see it that way. So keep an eye out for that. Before we go, Dasha, the president has unveiled his Hall of Fame, his presidential Hall of Fame in the White House today, and it's a massive trolling exercise of Joe
Mm,
Biden. Did you see
shocker.
these pictures? Did you see these
Yes,
pictures?
I did. Yes, I did. The memification of the the White House continues here.
For people who haven't seen this, Trump has built essentially like what he's calling a Hall of Fame. It's all very Trump, very Hollywood. There's like a portrait of each president hanging with the number of their presidency over them, starting, of course, with George Washington. Trump is in there twice, which he must be thrilled about. And in between the two pictures of Trump, instead of a portrait of Joe Biden, he has hung a picture of an auto pen machine, which of course is his way of saying that Joe Biden wasn't really making any decisions and it was all just being
They
signed
love to troll.
by a
They
machine.
love to troll. I mean, I don't know how many reporters who are listening to this have received a meme as a response to a request for comment recently, but this all feels kind of part of the same trend of the White House really enjoying being very online and taking that IRL.
That lots of people will be furious that they're just sort of making these sorts of slightly childish jokes like in the actual White House. But I actually think there is a slightly serious point, which is this is kind of Trump's shtick with his supporters is he sticks it to people that they hate and they just love that. A lot of his supporters just really feel like he's fighting the good fight for them and they enjoy watching it. And even if it's a bit silly like this,
Yep, that's exactly right. It's a joke for a very specific audience, and that audience eats it up.
all right, Dasha, thanks so much as always for joining. That's all we've got time for this morning. We've got much more news and analysis in today's Playbook newsletter, which you can find at politico.com/playbook. And we will be back tomorrow. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening.